Hi, Billy Goodnick here, local landscape architect and lover of ducks. Welcome to Garden Wise, the place where all the cool kids come to learn about sustainable landscaping. You know, there's a saying in the world of design, whether we're talking about architecture or smartphones or landscape design, it's form follows function. In other words, what it looks like, its form, is secondary to how it works. You wouldn't want a chair that has a seat at a 45-degree angle, no matter how nice it looks. Well, one of the things landscape architects and landscape designers do is think about function as well as just making your garden drop dead gorgeous and sustainable. So we're going to talk to another landscape architect. We've been doing this series for a while, and learn from Jack Kiesel how he goes about designing a landscape for his clients. Stay tuned. Hi, we're going to talk to another designer today. The whole purpose of these segments is to warm you up to the idea that maybe you need a designer in your project. Not every project needs it. Some of them are fine DIY, but there's a point at which we need some professional help. So I'm here with Jack Kiesel. Your Kiesel Design? Kiesel?
Yep, Kiesel Design. That's
okay.
it.
You design Kiesels. So if you need any Kiesels, he's the guy to call.
Exactly.
I've known you for years and years, but I don't know that I've ever gotten back into your origin story. So what was your first brush with plants? What opened the door to what you're doing now?
I think I grew up as a hippie child in Cambria, and I was introduced to kind of gardening by this one guy. He was quite the character, kind of got me into that, and then also I developed a real appreciation for the natural beauty of Cambria with the pine trees, the ocean.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time in the creeks when I was a little kid, and through that I really started paying attention to plants and animals and whatnot. And then I also did art. Art was also a big part of my growing up. I was surrounded by a lot of artists too.
Yeah, Cambria.
And right, and so when I was grounded, I just draw all the time.
Were you grounded
yeah,
often?
When I was grounded, yeah, probably a little more than some kids, less than others, I guess.
Why am I not surprised?
But taking that interest in art and science, I kind of was looking around, and landscape architecture seemed to be a really good fit for that.
So when you were 6 years old, you became a landscape architect?
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
So Jack, I got your plan here. We're going to put it up on the screen. I just want to talk a little bit about the different rooms, the spaces, the activity areas. So up here, we're right along the back of the house. Right here, we've got what kind of uses?
Well, this patio here, we created some wood stoops, as they are.
Stoops, I love that.
Yeah, to come out, and because there's quite a bit of grade difference here, so that's taken up by these wood steps.
Okay, two
very
steps
generous.
down.
And then you come down here in this terrace, and then this is a combination kind of dining and entertaining, which we have here, obviously the table
And this
and the fireplace. So this is
Okay.
like your kind of evening kind of hangout spot.
social
Also, you get
activities.
some great views, obviously, of the mountains and everything here. Kind of view, dining, and just basic lounge terrace.
Got it. And then over here, this looks like this extra building here.
Yeah, that's an office. That's in home office at this point.
And it's got a nice little space out around
Correct.
it and a little deck there. So then we come down the steps, and this is just a planted slope, and we come to, no guilt trip here, you got a lawn.
Correct. We have a lawn.
People don't go to hell just for having a lawn, right? But
No.
what goes along with?
Well, what goes along with that lawn? Well, if you can justify the lawn, we look at it as being okay, because in this situation we have a very active family with teenage kids, and they have a dog, and it's right next to the pool, and they're down here pretty much every day. So they're playing catch, they're running the dog. We had more of a drought-tolerant California native lawn, and just the amount of use that we're getting out of it was a little more than we had anticipated. So then we had to go with a more traditional lawn that could really kind of take that
Got it.
abuse. So.
And then we've got a nice big pool here. And that's great. And then you've got also some areas down in here for hanging out near the pool. Start with the things you're going to use, things that are going to enhance your life. The same way if you love cooking, you put a little extra money into your kitchen, that it's worth the extra expense in a landscape to be able to use it functionally and have it be an expansion of your lifestyle. And it sounds like that's what you did with the pool.
Correct.
I'm looking at this little pattern down here. It looks like rock or boulders or that sort of thing. That's doing what?
Yeah, so this is a drainage feature. So it's basically a bioswale that runs along the edge here. You know, as every designer, one of the first things you look at is the drainage, you know, and you want to make sure that you're responsible as much as possible for all the on-site drainage here, literally on-site. So that's what this is doing. It's allowing that water to infiltrate over time and to reduce any overflows to the neighbors. You know, we want to be good neighbors.
Excellent. Got the big picture. Well, it's a complicated set of plans, more than I ever do. And I'm pretty sure you don't just stay up 24 hours and produce this yourself. So let's talk a little bit about how you get from what we talked about, client interview, to really being able to create the details and who's part of that whole process. So why don't we start over here? Love this bench. Simple, but the dark wood and all that. What kind of materials are here and how did you get to them?
Yeah, well, this is a Ipe hardwood, and so it has a really good rot resistance, very dense wood, more rot resistant even than redwood, for example. And so, yeah, that's what it's a really great bench. They love it. It's a custom feature. Stacy Isaac, who I work with and collaborated with on this project, Stacy Isaac Design, she was a huge part of this whole garden. Couldn't have happened without her, and she was the one who basically designed this.
So material selection and then being able to explain to the person who's going to hold the hammer how you put all this stuff together. That all falls to people like Stacy and...
Yeah, well, we do the detailed drawings, figure out how it's going to get fabricated, then we make sure we bring in the right people to do the work.
Right. Love the fireplace. It's just so simple. Tell me a little bit more about it. What are we looking at in here? How we get them built?
Yeah, so this is a gas custom fireplace with a board form exterior.
So that means they're
Facing,
just laying up wood boards and pouring inside it.
And we look at this landscape as kind of a California Mediterranean contemporary type of style. And with that style, you often see these kind of board form textures brought into the landscape. It's also works well. They used to use it traditionally and as well. The board form concrete.
I love this planting design. It's a mix of plants I don't know that I would have come up with, and Stacy's hand shows here. But this mix of some California natives. We've got looks like deer grass and manzanitas, and then just this wonderful mix of things. What was here before this planting showed up?
Well, what was here before is they had some olive trees that were here. Actually, one of those trees, I think we did relocate it right there. And so what the problem with those trees too was, if you look at the existing photos, it was really blocking the views and just not much was growing under it. So in order to open the yard, the landscape up to the views, and so people can see, hey, there's something over here you might want to, visit.
Right.
So we took those trees out and re-terraced this, put in all new steps. This used to be a brick patio, which was very uneven in surface.
Brick will
much
do that
smaller,
after time.
Than is now. There's also a pergola that they had over here that was very low, so you really felt like you're almost going to hit your head on the thing. And so that was taken out, and that really helped. That's why the umbrellas, maybe at a future point in time, they might reintroduce another pergola, but that remains to be seen.
And the plants, looks like everything is super low water use. And a very, as structured as the patio is, everything's on these grids. This is just got a very loose kind of wild feel. And I think you talked about this being more formal and the wildness that we have down here.
Correct. Yeah, we wanted to kind of create, soft feeling of softness and kind of soften the edges,
like the grasses.
As it were. And I think the chondropedilum and then the grasses help do that. Also introducing some plants in between the joints here and there.
Right.
Also kind of transitions what we talked about earlier between that kind of really hard surface to the more soft areas. So that really helps. And then combination of the blue-colored senecio help to pop the succulents, and then the gravels are also nice because they're low maintenance. You can also walk on it if you need to.
Yeah. What I'm seeing here, and this is something that I think is key for professionals, is there's echoes of similar types of plants. We've got agave and aloe, which have the same sort of structure. We're using silvers and grayish colors together, and there's just a very harmonious feel in here, and yet there's a lot of diversity to it, and hats off to the final planting design. Last thing I want to talk about is the bioswale and the gravel area that you have down here that carries all the drainage water and lets it sink in. So why don't we head over that way. So Jack, wrapping up, this is actually a nice place to wrap up this segment, because when everything's all done, all the water, all the runoff, everything ends up here. This is kind of like the last paragraph in the story here. So what are we looking at here, and why do we have something like this? It's just beautiful. I just love the wildness of it. But what do you call something like this, these areas of gravel, kind of like a stream bed?
Well, it's basically, we call this like a bioswale, or infiltration swale is another term that is often used. And per the city, we're kind of required, especially any kind of larger redevelopments or new development, to be responsible for all the on-site stormwater, and that's what this is doing. It's taking all the water from the upper terraces, moving it through here, and then again infiltrating on site as much as possible.
So in principle, we're not only keeping this owner's water from becoming a nuisance, but we're also recharging groundwater here. And I guess in some cases, though not here, we're keeping it from going to the street, going down the gutters, going out into the creeks.
Yeah, and then we always try to introduce these as not just a utility type feature, but it's actually something that can be very beautiful at the same time. So
well, it is.
It's doing a number of things here. So we have the gravel right in the lower areas, so you're keeping that clear so the water can go right in. And then with plants like these carex and whatnot, and then the chondropellum that can handle intermittent inundation. And so that's why you see these. And then as you get further out, you get more drier plants. And we're putting some stuff in here with the grasses, so you get some color. Every once in a while, you'll have a aloe or whatnot in there, or the leucadendrons, and it really kind of gives a real lot of body to the feature.
Yeah, it's like you've got what I call muscle plants, things that just
Yes.
have a real presence, and then in between is all the finery. So it's a wonderful contrast of similar forms, but doing them in all different textures and foliage size and things like that.
Yeah, this is very popular, especially with contemporary, to do this kind of mix of grasses and succulents and kind of colorful shrubs like this. And the beautiful thing about these leucadendrons, I know you like to use these, Billy, is that they do give you all year round color. And that's another part we want to do with this garden, is to make interest all year round.
Yeah, well, that's key. Flowers are fleeting.
Yes.
And structure and foliage color and contrast like this are there all around. I want to thank you for the time. It's a great project. I wish I could say I'd be stealing some ideas from you, but I don't work at this scale. So thanks for spending your time, and thanks to Stacy for all the work that she put in on this project. And when in need, look for a professional designer. Bring them into your project.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you. See, I told you Jack would be really informative. If you want to learn more about his services or just look at his beautiful designs, go to his website, kieseldesign.com. Now we're heading out to the wilds of Goleta, actually just a few blocks from my house. And we're going to what you might have known as Knapp Nursery. It's now Paradise Farm. It's owned by Celeste and Patrick Burns, and Patrick has all the expertise you need about buying fruit trees. Want to pick some fresh fruit for your breakfast? That's the place to go to learn how to grow them. Spoiler alert, 3 words: build your soil. Let's talk to Patrick. Hi, I'm at Paradise Farm in Goleta. You may have known it as Knapp Nursery for decades and decades. It's under new ownership. And I'm here to talk about fruit trees. As a designer, I'm often asked by my clients, should I grow any fruit trees? What kind should I grow? How do I grow them? I know a good amount about it, but I'm here with a expert today. I'm going to talk to Pat Burns about growing fruit trees, how to pick them, how to care for them, what's a day in the life. So let's go talk to Patrick, see what he's got to say. Pat,
Yes, sir.
thanks for being on the show. I met you a month or so ago and we started talking about doing this segment, and your excitement about fruit trees was contagious, and it went beyond just biting into a plum and having it drip on your shirt. What is it about fruit trees that gets you?
Besides the fact that you get to go out into your own yard and pick some fruit and eat it, it's one of those things, one of the few things that we can do individually to kind of alleviate a lot of the ills that are facing our society.
Such as?
You know, income inequality, taking fruit from your own yard and sharing it with neighbors.
Wonderful.
It doesn't solve the problem, but it just kind of alleviates it. Getting to know your neighbors, reducing our carbon footprints. You know, you don't need to order blueberries from Chile in December because you're growing them at your house.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
So I'm going to put myself in the position of my design clients. I know a good amount about plants and fruit trees and things, but I'm often asked by my clients who are designing a new landscape or rehabbing a landscape about where do fruit trees fit in. And one of the first questions, and it's kind of silly, they come to me and they say, what should I grow? And you know, my answer is, what are you going to eat?
Yeah.
But how do you deal with helping people select? They walk in here on a Saturday morning,
Yeah, that's
their
one of the
coffee in their hand, and they go, tell me about fruit trees. How
Yeah.
would you start that conversation with them?
Yeah, that's the first question I ask. What do you eat? And if you have children, what do you want them to eat? Kids love to go outside and pick fruit and eat it. It's a natural thing to do, and couldn't be more organic or better for them. That type of thing. So what do you eat? And then the really beautiful thing about living in Santa Barbara is you can grow almost anything here. There's a neighbor around the corner from us that grows mangoes. So, and there's bananas and all that stuff. We carry mostly stone fruits, citrus, and avocados. The exotics come and go as they're available, but yeah, Santa Barbara's a great place to grow things.
So let's start with that. You mentioned stone fruits, and that, I guess, encompasses all the deciduous things, not literally stone fruits, things like apples, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. How do those differ from the other categories you talked about, citrus, avocados, and things? There's a huge difference between how those two types of plants grow or what they look like through the year. Yeah,
the subtropical avocados and citrus trees tend to live a long time and are slow growing, and they don't lose their leaves. They produce greenery, and they have their cycles that are year round, whereas stone fruits go dormant.
So stone fruits, for example,
apricots, apples, peaches.
Things with a pit you don't want to bite on.
Right. And those are deciduous trees. They lose all their leaves. They go dormant for a certain short period in Santa Barbara. Mm-hmm.
Which we'd like to be longer.
And then they come back and they require a lot more pruning. Pruning is very important with stone fruits. It's not critical with citrus and avocados, but with stone fruit, you really want to keep the roots and the canopy, the two sections of the tree, in balance. So a lot of the stone fruits can be grown in containers and put on your patio, because you can control the balance of the two sections of the tree, but through pruning. So after the tree is fruiting in the summertime, you prune it the way you want to keep it for the rest of the year.
So you're, the way I describe it to people is you've got a certain amount of biomass above ground. It's being supported by a proportionate amount of roots and
like
biomass
a mirror image.
It's like the theory of bonsai. You have a 100-year-old pine tree that's only this big. It's growing in this much soil, so you just keep it in
that's
proportion.
amazing the way people get that done.
As lovely as these square wooden boxes are, they're not exactly going to put you on the cover of Fine Gardening magazine. Other options or ways of putting these out and still having them feel like an amenity in the garden?
Any container will do, except you got to be aware that after a few years you're going to have to refresh the soil. And so if you have
Yes.
a big stone container with a lip on it, it makes it really difficult to
can't
pull it out. Yeah.
Right.
So it's got to be smooth-sided and have relatively easy
And
access to
preferably
the
wider
bottom.
at the top.
Yeah.
So we're back to bonsai, the basic principle in bonsai. The way you can keep a plant in the same container for dozens of years is you, once in a while, when it's eaten up all the soil or used up all of it and there's a big root mass, so you would be trimming the top back a little bit, reduce the biomass,
Yep.
trimming the roots back a little bit, putting it back in fresh soil, same size container.
Yep.
You don't have to keep shopping up.
Yeah.
I like that. What else do I want to know about growing stuff in containers? How do I, or just in general, what about watering?
You got to get to know your soil because every location is different. This soil is where we're standing is different than it is 200 yards away.
Right.
So you got to get to know your soil. Grab a handful after you water it and see how many days it takes for it to not clump together. So you
And we're talking about going down a few inches.
yeah,
Get
don't
a
just
shovel.
just don't scrape the stuff
right.
off the top. Get down a little bit, grab a handful and clump it together. If it stays together, it's still moist. And don't add water until it
Right.
falls apart in your hands.
So expectations. I come here in February. I buy a bare root fruit tree. January, excuse me.
Yeah.
I do all the right things, which you're going to tell me about, and then I go in the house and I start toasting some bread because in about 5 minutes I'm going to have some beautiful peaches, right?
Nope, 3 or 4
okay.
years. Yeah.
3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
lower expectations.
Yeah, there are some varieties that go faster, and there's some precocious trees that'll start producing sooner, and you just get lucky and you get those trees. That's great.
Would you take the fruit off just so it conserves some energy, or not a big deal?
I don't think it's a big deal.
Because I'm doing that right now with my tomatoes. I keep picking the flowers off until they get big enough to
that
support
works.
them.
Or plant another tomato, the way I look at it.
Okay.
If you want to get more, just plant another tomato. But the core issue is to control your tree, keep it in balance with pruning. I can't emphasize that enough. Prune your fruit trees, be religious about it, and get aggressive with it, and make it a thing that you do.
But there's a right way, I know, and I don't know what it is. There's a right way to prune specific types. You might prune a peach differently than you prune a plum.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to go over that here. So what resources would you send somebody to learn more about the specifics?
It's not hard. It's easy, and look at the best resource probably in the world is Dave Wilson's nursery. Those guys are experts, Tom Spellman. They have all the literature, and we can certainly share that with anybody that comes in.
Okay, let's move forward a little bit. My client has put some fruit trees in, and they're doing something, but they want to know what else they need to do. So a year in the life of an established fruit tree. Let's talk a little about how you water them. Do they need to be mulched? We hear a lot about sprays and fungicides and going organic and pests and things like that. I know it's less complicated than having a saltwater fish tank. And it's a little more complicated than having a pet rock. So what's a...
Pay attention to your tree, see what it's doing. It'll tell you if it's if it's drooping,
wilting,
it needs water. If it's getting discolored, there's certain reasons for that. I don't want to get into all the weeds, but
and the weeds.
Yeah, and
Keep
keep
the
it
weeds
clean.
down.
Yeah, exactly. And there's remedies for all this stuff.
So if some mystery pops up and somebody looks at their plant and they go, "This just doesn't look right," is it enough to take a few photos or grab a couple leaf samples, bring them in, do a little diagnosing?
Yeah, I would say just be patient with it. The trees are very resilient. Unless it's a big major problem, don't worry about it.
Let nature take care of it.
Yeah, it'll be fine. You need to be religious about fertilizing it twice a year. Pick your dates, so it's easy to remember. June 1st, January 1st.
And what kind of
June
fertilizer?
1st, January, a balanced organic citrus or fruit tree fertilizer.
So I've sent my clients in here, you've educated them, you've helped them pick out a tree. I'm no use on this. How do they put it in the ground? What do they do in terms of how big a hole, what you mix with it, if there's any incantations you have to do or wait for star alignments? How do we get them started?
Soil's everything.
Put a What is it? Put a $1 plant in a $10 hole? Is that the?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, stuff like that, and really invest in your soil. But that's true for everything that we're growing at home. Build healthy soil first.
And what healthy?
Constantly.
Tell me about healthy.
Use organics and often amend it. Don't just do it once and expect it to last for 10 years. Do a little bit every season and let it build over time, because what you're trying to do is build the ecosystem underground that will take over.
A living web.
Right. You won't, and then down the road you won't even know that you're doing it, and your things are thriving.
Doesn't that mean there might be bugs in your soil?
Thousands per handful.
We want that.
Yeah, we want that.
So you've got a bag here. It's called Soil Booster.
Yeah, this is a soil conditioner. It's meant to be used as a 50-50 mix with your native soil.
So I'm going to be here with a shovel. I'm going to pour some of this out. I'm going to take a shovel of soil. I'm going to mix it up.
Yeah.
Throw it back in.
Yep, and then water it deeply so that the soil adheres in right next to the roots.
I usually tell people put in about a third of the soil, soak it, put another layer in, soak it. That way you're sure everything down at the bottom's
and try not to leave. It's really important with citrus trees and avocados, but it's true with stone fruits too. Don't leave a well for your fruit trees.
The basin.
Yeah, don't leave a basin. If anything, make it a mound. And you could do a berm on the outside, but don't make a well that the water will sit in and stay there.
So the berm on the outside is going to keep water from running too far away, but the crown of the plant where the stem meets the roots, you want that a little elevated or flush.
Yeah, we don't want water sitting right next to the trunk. Those trees need oxygen in the soil. This is a great mulch. This particular bag right here is great for mulch. It's organic. You put it right on top and it eventually works its way. You can go 3 or 4 inches, but you don't need to. You just be deliberate about doing it every year.
Just so you're not seeing the native soil.
Yeah, come into Paradise Farm and buy this every year and you put it on. No, it's not like that. Just make an investment in your soil.
So, last thing before we wrap this up, when should people worry about their fruit trees once they're in the ground? What are some of the signs of things where you may want to not just stand back and let nature take its course? When do you step in? When
the trees will tell you when you need to worry.
Yeah, but if you don't know what to listen for,
just know that most of these trees, all of them in fact, are very resilient, and they go through cycles. If you get a peach tree that has a lot of fruit on it, but half of the fruit is brown on it, and it ruins the fruit, that's a problem.
Right. But how do you know that's coming?
But if it has a couple of leaves out of 10,000 that have the leaf curl on it, don't spray the tree. Wait for nature to kind of have a chance to fix it, and because it goes through a cycle, it's going to lose all its leaves, and if it comes back, there's remedies for it.
Is there anything I can do that's gentle, that's gonna...
Yeah, there's sprays that we have here. Every nursery in town has them. Organic sprays that you just kind of squirt on the aphids and it'll remedy the situation. Okay,
and they go to heaven.
Yeah.
Because they were on a fruit tree, not something nasty.
Yep.
Cool. This has been great. I have one more question for you, and we're going to cut, and I just want to check with you on this one thing, so stand by. I want to thank you for this, and I'll be back in 1 second. Do you know what variety of peach this is? I want to grow more of these.
It's a Jimmy Durante peach.
This is a Jimmy Durante. Well played. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Mr. Peach, and I don't do ventriloquism very well. Thanks, Patrick, for that delicious information. And if you want to visit Paradise Farm, they're right near Cathedral Oaks and Fairview on Carlo Drive. Or you could just type them into the interwebs and figure out where they are. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
It's 4 a.m. Do you know what your sprinklers are doing? Broken drip emitter. Gurgling spray head. Broken pipe. runoff. Check your sprinklers for leaks and repair. Visit waterwisesb.org for more information.
When the weather changes, do you know how much water your plants need? For landscaping text alerts, subscribe to the county-wide free message service. You'll receive weekly texts with a water percent adjust recommendation to help you conserve water and save money by reducing your watering during cooler weeks. You'll also be notified about upcoming WaterWise classes. A typical seasonal or monthly adjustment isn't precise enough, so you may be overwatering and wasting money. A weekly adjustment is better for the health of your landscape, and it's so simple. Just look for the seasonal adjust, water budget, or percent feature on your irrigation controller. Then select the correct month and finally reduce the percentage based on the recommendation for that week. To sign up for weekly landscape alerts, text WaterWise to 855-510-0241.
Hi, welcome back to GardenWise. I'm still Billy Goodnick. I'm going to take you on a trip in the Wayback Machine to the late 80s when our area was having a very severe drought, brown lawns everywhere, and the really daring people went out and got some gravel or bought 3 plants and put them in a little triangle in the middle of what used to be their lawn. Well, we're kind of coming back into that again, and we're becoming a lot more water-wise. For those of you who are still in love with that idea of a big swath of something green and you're not ready to revise your entire garden, I've got just the plant for you. It's called Lippia, and it's got a cousin called Carapia. And we're going to go visit Pat Kelly, former buddy of mine from City of Santa Barbara, and he's going to show us all about his journey into discovering Lippia. Hi, I am at the lovely, tranquil backyard of Pat Kelly. Pat Kelly and I worked together for years. He was city engineer when I was working with parks and did a whole bunch of projects together.
We did.
Skateboard park, big one.
Very
Anyway,
fun.
he's got this beautiful Lippia lawn, and I am here to grill him and learn more about what it's like to live with Lippia. So, Pat, what motivated you? What made you say, I want to have a Lippia lawn replacement? There was a lawn here, right? Traditional.
Yeah, so we landscaped back in 2009 and put in Marathon, but within a few years with the dogs, it turned into more of a weed patch and eventually a dirt patch because I'm a little bit too cheap to water. And then our daughter is getting married in 2018.
Environmentally concerned.
That's it.
That's it.
I'm a tree hugger. Any event, so 2018, big event in the family, and we wanted to make the yard look a little bit nicer. So we considered the idea of putting in Marathon again, putting in, which was pretty popular at the time, artificial grass, or take advantage of the city's rebate to put in Carapia or some other drought-resistant lawn.
And you ended up going with Lippia / Carapia.
Exactly. Very happy about that. It costs less and it's prettier.
Cool. And you used somebody else's money for some of it?
Well, that was part of the city rebate,
right,
which just made it cost effective.
So we were talking a little earlier, you left the majority of the sprinkler system that had been watering the lawn and just adapted it so you could get this off to a good start. The sprinkler system was there? Great. But since then, I'm kind of jumping around here, you've told me that it gets very, very little water. Could you talk a little about your watering approach once it got established?
Correct. It took a lot of water to establish it, just like a lot of natives, a lot of deep watering, so the roots could go really deep. Then after a few years, I started experimenting with, we chatted about going Darwin on it and to see how little water,
of the fittest.
see how little water it needed. So I'd only water it when it started getting a little bit crispy. Now I think I'm down to 2 or 3 waterings a year for the hot spots. And then in some of the shade spots, maybe just a short amount of hand watering.
Wonderful. Whatever's left in your coffee cup, hit a spot there. I mean, that's great. That's been my experience talking to other people and seeing them is once you get it started, and I want to circle back to that, then the key is to allow the surface soil to get a little bit drier and keep the moisture down low in between watering so that you do get that root system, that deep root system anchored?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of different things about how deep the roots go, and it's very deep,
Yeah.
from what I understand. And we've had some hot weather, and it's survived it.
That's great. Prior to putting it in, the preparation for the area, you took this down to bare dirt to make sure there wasn't any competition of old stuff coming back?
Well, it was mostly dirt, but what was left was pretty hardy weeds. And
Right.
so there's had to do some weed killer to prepare the lawn, and you go through the process that they recommend to reduce the competition.
Right.
And after it was installed, kept a little bit eye out for weeds in between the stolons that were planted, but it wasn't that much.
Right, you want to jump on all that stuff early so you've got somewhere to go with it.
And I think it's important as to when you plant it too. You want to plant it when it's just about to take off.
So you said you got to start, the event was in August, and you put it in the ground how soon before that?
It was installed, I think, in April, and by the event in November, it was 85 or so, 95% filled in.
That's great. So you had an event here, there were people on it. I guess that would be a little bit scary, the foot traffic and all, but it sounds as if, as long as you're not using it as a polo field or soccer practice, it can take some traffic. It'll show, but then it just fills itself back in.
Yeah, we've had different yard parties, and a couple times a year, in one particular year, and it seemed no worse for wear.
That's great. Yeah, we've shot some footage for some other areas where it's a frequent path, and it just looks different. It's smaller leaves, it's more compacted, but it seems to be tolerating that kind of traffic as well. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's like to live with it, what kind of maintenance it needs, how you would compare that to the time and effort you put into a lawn versus what it takes to keep this behaving itself? Because it does have a reputation.
Well, less mowing, less water. And as far as cleanup goes, because we live underneath some eucalyptus, that at first was a little bit of a challenge as to how to keep it looking good, keeping that meadow look without looking like it's, you know, living underneath a eucalyptus forest. So started with, you know, the mowing was the cleanup, then a little bit of raking, and then I came upon just a simple idea of when, after a windstorm, pick up the chunks from the eucalyptus and then just get a power nozzle.
Oh, one of those little spray nozzles that you use just for washing down.
Exactly, and then that makes the whole environment look very nice. It makes it look like a meadow again.
I'm guessing based on the size of this, you probably go through 2 or 3 gallons of water at the most in terms of what comes out of the hose. So it's still, even though you're using water as a tool, it's pretty thrifty to just spray a little over the top.
Yeah, 3 to 5, depending upon, I'm just thinking in terms of how long it takes me to fill up a 5-gallon bucket. About amount of that a time, maybe a little bit more, but the water's on the green.
Yeah. Oh, so it's going back to good use. Another thing that I know can be problematic with Lippia, especially if it's happy and the rest of the garden is doing well, is you can put in a piece of header board, but it doesn't really care. It laughs and continues growing. So is that a big problem, or how do you approach it when it starts creeping where you don't want it?
Well, like in the spring, I wait until it takes off in spring, and then I go along the border and just cut it along where there's another bed. And right now I'm letting it go over the edge of the patio, just kind of soften up the patio edge.
Yeah, it looks
and
really
just
nice.
do a little bit of a clip. So once a year, probably realistically twice a year, have to look at the edge.
One other thing though, just to point out, is as Lippia spreads, as long as there's some moisture in the soil, and in most gardens there is, it's also going to root somewhat as it goes. So it's not just a matter of snipping it and taking it off. You'll have to kind of zip them out a little bit, or
easiest thing
hula
to do,
hoe.
Yeah, is to get a shovel to cut the edge, and then just get a hoe and on your and just hoe it up and pick it up on your.
I'd probably be reaching for my flat nose shovel first, and you can get under the mulch even without disturbing it. But that's okay. So a day, a week, a year in the life sounds to me like minimal water once it's established.
Yes.
A little bit of picking through if some new weeds show up, if the birds drop
In
and
winter.
something blows in.
Yeah.
No fertilizer.
You know, I just looked up in Sunset Magazine. They said, well, you know, in winter you may want to fertilize it, but
It's
I
not,
think in the 4 years I've had it, I fertilized it twice, and I'm wondering if I really even needed to do that.
probably didn't. I mean, it's not real demanding in terms of,
No.
of nurturing. We're not growing
No.
blueberries here.
No.
And then, so it'll take some traffic. It's good for entertaining the bees. It does attract some bees. So I guess it depends on a person's individual feeling about it, especially if they're allergic to bee stings. This may not be the one for you, but you're pretty successful mowing the majority of the flowers off and minimizing that.
Like, for example, if we're having a whole bunch of people coming over, I'll kind of level it off and get maybe 75% of the flowers off. There's still some flowers left. And then just before everybody comes over, I'll hose it to get it wet, and then the bees are gone.
Oh.
The bees really only come when it's hot.
Gotcha. Pat, thank you for opening up your yard to us. It's just beautiful, and I like the fact that we're not going to have to bring in any audio for the bird chirping. Whoever you assigned to be your bird wrangler, they nailed it.
Yeah, well, good to see it.
Good to see it too.
It's great
Pat.
to see it.
Carapia, Lippia, great stuff. Good substitute. Big thanks to Pat for taking us through his garden and sharing his experience with Lippia. I hope you'll check it out and maybe consider it for your own garden. Now on to the plant rant. Now we're not upset about anything. It's not that kind of rant. In fact, it's quite yummy. We're going back to Paradise Farm. We're meeting with Celeste, and she's going to tell us about her bountiful crop of blueberries and how to grow them at home. It's going to be yummy. Stay tuned.
What's your plan?
Hi, I'm Celeste Burns from Paradise Farm, and one of my favorite plants is blueberries. The reason I love blueberries is because they make beautiful plants. They also give you a lot of rewards with fruit, and we harvest lots of fruit from our blueberries. The key to successfully growing them, though, is all about the pH of the soil. We have alkaline pH soil, and so we grow ours above ground in these great 24-inch box containers. We have 9 of these in our front yard, and we are harvesting 2 bowls of blueberries every evening. These blueberries start in early spring, and we're on about the 3rd quarter now, going into June for their fruiting period. So we're really excited about growing blueberries and sharing them with our neighbors, making blueberry jam. We are making blueberry pies. And so blueberries are definitely one of my favorite plants. I brought a jar from home, and I just want to touch base a little bit on the importance of soil to grow the blueberries. So we recommend strongly that you use a container to grow your blueberries so you can control the pH of the soil for those berries. They like a 5.5 pH, which is lower than most any other berry that you can grow. And if you put them 100% in acid soil mix, that makes all the difference in the world. And you would feed them with fruit, berry, and vine food. But just harvesting berries every day and being able to eat them, amazing.
Thank you, Celeste, for your information and for your enthusiasm. You got me real excited, and now I know what to plant next to my pancake tree. I'll have blueberries and pancakes. Yummy. So that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. It tells us that you're interested in sustainable landscaping, doing something good for your own garden, and doing something good for our community. If you want to see any past episodes of Garden Wise, you can go to waterwisesb.org. And that's going to do it. Pretty sure I'm still Billy Goodnick, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.